How's it going, friends? Here I am once again with another episode because you all have been asking for it a lot. Although today, well, as I said, it's a bit sad for me. Well, because this person could be said he was my buddy, of course. He knew what he was up to. And also, well, he did his thing. He wasn't a pure white dove, let's be honest. And of course, without Riddell, oh well, what happened happened. And he is now resting alongside his father. I send him a hug wherever he is. And another hug for his cousin Gordo, who I know is very hurt, since practically Cheyo, as I used to call him. He was like a brother to him, and from what I was told, he is really hurt. And I'll confess, I thought they would never resign him because of the backing he had. Well, because he was the cousin of the Gordo, and it was known that the Gordo protected and took care of him. But you know, in this environment, it's very hard to get out without any consequences. It is like a rule that something will happen to you, whatever. But obviously something bad. Well, where shall we start? My friend's name was Eliseo Imperial Castro, but everyone called him Chayo. And in Anthrax, he was number 2. That was his code on the company's radio. He had the same name as his father, Mr. Eliseo Imperial Lopez, Mr. Eliseo in the 1970s and 1980s. He worked in the judicial police, but he left and joined the OCRN. Later, he hung out with his brother-in-law, Yoma, when Cholito was born. His dad was already Yoma's brother-in-law. And the truth is that the man with the hat was very fond of Don Cheyo. He had a lot of esteem and affection for him, just like Don Cheyo's mom, that is, Mayito Gordo and Cheyito's grandmother. Later on, I'll tell you some stories about MZ that very few people know, and I'm sure you will like them. Cholito and Mayito Gordo. They have been together practically since they were born. Cholito is older than Gordo, but only by a few months. And they were always very, very close here. I am going to show you some pictures of them. Of the two of them when they were small. In many media outlets and on social media, there's endless talk about the founders of the virus. Some mention the Chino, Peña, Fellow, and others. Who knows how many people were involved? And now with Cheyito passing, they say he was one of the founders too. He didn't create it, but he was one of the first to be part of it. Why? Because he was the cousin of the Gordo, and well, the Gordo was the head of them. As you can see, most of the Anthrax were said to be from the Las Huertas neighborhood, there in Culiacan. Well, the reality is that Gordo, Cheyito, and the Chino and others are from the Margarita neighborhood. But then, in the next street from where they are, that is Las Huertas, so it's practically the same. Here I want to take the opportunity to tell you that I'm planning to make an episode about El Chino, but it is taking me a while. Because I better making something more special and cooler to my taste. But it's going to be from all the Anthrax, of course, from the majority of them, because clearly I do not know everyone, and there is no information about everyone. But I'm going to try to do it the best and most detailed way possible, from how it was created, before they became a group of Telcar, when there were only a few cholos hanging around and they were a group of friends from the block. Gordo, Chente, Chino, and Chavo, Samuel Fuentes, El Phoenix, El Chube, El Feyo, Javi 23, Pancho Arce, Changuito, the Traca, the Monkey, Chiquillo, the Mute, the Roque, the Camarón, El Pocho, El Totoy, El Cali, El Güero Bastidas, El Plomín, the Italian Style, his brother Cholo, Fermesa, also El Nuev, and well, the ones I am missing, there are many. If you want to help me out, you can add more of their members in the comments so I can continue with the investigation and do a great job. But I assure you that it is something that at least I have not seen. It is going to be something well done, where we will talk about everything. Of all that stuff they asked me about when the Chino argued with Archivaldo in a club. And what was all that problem that was between them? Also about the clown's joke, about the resignation of El Chino. So please don't get impatient, because I want you to be satisfied with that and And the truth is that I am not doing it alone. There are some people who are helping me, and I hope all of you will also help me in the comments, giving me facts, rumors, characters, actions that interest you to investigate and thus be able to include it in what I want to do. All right, let's talk about Cheyo. I already told you that his grandmother lived in the Margarita neighborhood, and they used to meet there. Everyone from childhood were little rascals. I already tell you, this shorty was tough and had an angry face. And yeah, he was kinda grumpy, but he was a buddy. His favorite Takor was the 5.7, that was the standard one. The one for work. But he always carried another one, which was a 38 Super, which was fancy, where it had the Anthrax logo. In 2016, the Office of Foreign Assets Control, the OFAC of the United States Department of the Treasury, designated Eliseo Imperial Castro, Alfonso Lira Sotelo, the Atlante, to Javier Lira Sotelo, the Anibal, and to his sister Almadelia. Lira Othello, all four were designated for trafficking of merchandise and money laundering for the Sinaloa cartel. That meant that the assets of these four people who were involved, if they were within U.S. jurisdiction, they would be frozen, and no American could make a transaction with them. All of this was in the file in the Southern District of California, where they were being accused of beginning the trade of glass, blow, and grass, and of money laundering. The indictment indicates that Cheyo was acting for his uncle, the Yoma, leader of the organization, and that Atlante and his brother Anibal were the ones who transported the merchandise in Cheyito's name. The Mexican government arrested Alfonso Lira, the Atlante, in 2014 and Javier Lira, the Anibal, in September 2015. After that, Cheyo started doing business with their sister, Almadelia. So I'm going to tell you exactly what Cheyo was doing. He was selling between 200 and 250 pounds of glass a month and stuff. Also from Bachi Negra, like 15 kilos max. That's all Cheyo did with them, nothing more. And just so you know, all that glass and the black one, they weren't Cheyo's. He was just a reseller and all that. It was that, for example, the pound was at 20,000 pesos. Cheyo sold it to Atlante's sister for around 30,000 pesos or 35,000 pesos. And I am putting random numbers because I do not remember how much the glass was back then. And Mrs. Almadelia, in order to be in good standing with someone from Sinaloa, she bought them at those crazy prices. What she actually bought was the tray, just like that. Here it goes. Why I know this. Because the person who provided that glass to Cheyo was a man, and I know that he took more than 9,000 pounds and also around 30 million pesos from them, and a racing motorcycle and like 3 trucks and 8 gears exactly. But well, I'm just giving you this extra piece of information, so you know. Here I'm going to show you a picture of when Cheyo was announced. Cheyo had a lean-to next to her grandmother's, but it was funny because everyone made fun of it. Honestly. With those he got along with, the two was very friendly and a good person. He would invite them to eat, take them. He gets along great with them. With those who didn't, well, it was a mess. Well, I went to eat at that place. It says that the U.S. government offered $5 million for him. That's not true. The U.S. government never offered a reward for him. They are very misinformed about that. Don't believe it. Like I said, he wasn't an important piece. He didn't actually have any really sensitive or important responsibility in the organization. Nothing like that. The news has painted him a bit like a leader, and I don't know what else. The reality. It's not any of that, and it never was any of that. He was cousin of Mayito Gordo, and it was just the voice of the Mayito Gordo, but he, in fact, he didn't have power. Pay attention. Chayo was very discreet, knew how to move, kept a low profile. Actually, After they caught the Gordo and all the series of attacks against the Anthrax started, Chayito was sleeping in some very old apartments. But of the oldest ones there in Culiacan, ugly. And he was always on a motorcycle with a helmet like that to pass through checkpoints and go unnoticed so they didn't see him. He was riding his motorcycle everywhere, always with his short. But that's how he was, Chayito. You would talk to him, and out of nowhere he would suddenly ride off on a motorcycle. It was a very good strategy because that way he went unnoticed for many years. Nothing like many years ago when I remember he was driving a military green racer and had a picture of Che Guevara, and at the top had a base where they put a long one in, and they would go like that to the roots. Chayito, just like Gordo, loved that atmosphere. They never missed the routes to Jotagua and to Sinaloa. Here I'm going to show you the photos where Chayito appears in his razor with the Anthrax logo. Once, Javi looked for Chayito because a group from the Navy had an informant who was giving information about the house Chayito had on the Isla, and another house he had there in Las Quintas. There, very close to the zoo. That group from the Navy passed the information to Javi. They agreed and carried out an operation to catch that informant. That day, the informant arrived at the base that the Marines had in Park 87 in Culiacan, and the informant arrived in a taxi, and the Marines passed the taxi's number to Javi. And between Javi and the two, they intercepted the taxi, a few streets ahead of the park. And that's how they caught the informant. So you can just see people's brazenness. And I haven't even finished telling you. Lately, Chayito was involved in two businesses. One was a money lender, lending money with interest. And another business he had was that he was a collector. Forced people to pay. This was very low-key. For that, he was very discreet. He didn't do it much because he knew he would get in trouble with those in charge in Culiacan. That Chayito started getting closer to the Mayito Flaco, but the Flaco didn't like him at all. In fact, he disliked him a lot, and was about to resign him back then, around 2015 or 2016, I don't remember exactly, because he found out some things Chayito was doing wrong. The thing is that he left the whole ceiling with holes, and those holes, they lasted for many years. I think they removed them just recently, and I don't know if there's one or another around because I did see some gunshots. Sometimes he and one of the Fuentes would arrive, because Yoma was dating the mom of El Gordo and a relative of Samuel Fuentes was dating the sister. Just so you know, back in the 80s, the Yoma did and undid because he was relatively young, around 32 or 33 years old, or maybe less. That's why I told you that all the Pocas arrived there, and heavy people in the business. And sometimes, while the Yoma was inside during the visit, outside was Ramon Arellano, Benjamin Arellano, when everyone was fine. And since we love gossip, we are already hooked. I'll tell you another thing Yoma did, right there in his ex-mother-in-law's house. Turns out Big M was happying up all night, and the band was playing for him. That was before the year 2010. Well, the old man was already tuned in. It was no, folks. The real mafia isn't like that. Why do you think they caught Alfredo Beltran alone? Why was Arturo Beltran with just 3 people in the apartment when they took him down? Nacho Coronel. How many were with him when they got him? Emilio Cazares was alone. When they almost caught Mauricio and Yoma in Mazatlan, they were alone. When they caught the licenciado, he was alone. When they caught Vicente Carrillo, he was with his brother-in-law. Benjamin Arellano was alone. El Chapo in Mazatlan was with just one person. Muñeco Salazar the same. Felipe Cabrera, another one like him. When the Federtals caught Mayo and Mauricio, they were on their own. Well, I hope this helps you understand why. Because quickly someone takes credit for it. Is that resignation attributed, or because the Telcar immediately activates the alerts? What happened, and the information arrives that same day, just like I told you. That same day it was found out who gave the order and why. Why? Because it doesn't seem fair to me that only some know what they can do, and others, not because I already told you in the book that's coming out. There will be tricks and strategies. Things that everyone uses so that everyone realizes the reality of the trash in that environment. Things are, if they noticed, on the day of Cheyo's resignation, the truck, it was perfectly parked. Here I come. And there's no doubt about that. In fact, as I said, sources informed me that Cheyo at close range. And then they started shooting.